Bale has played killers, kings, lunatics, saints, and monsters, and in March 2026, he becomes Frankenstein's creature in The Bride. Before that happens, it's worth asking a dangerous question. What is the wildest performance Bale has ever given? We're ranking not by awards, but by how far Bale pushes himself and how much the performance still feels dangerous to watch. 10. Empire of the Sun, 1987. We're starting off at number 10 with Empire of the Sun, and it's here not because of scale, but because of instinct. Bale plays Jim, a privileged British child dropped into the chaos of wartime internment. The defining scene is Jim standing alone watching fighter planes take off, his face split between awe and fear. Bale doesn't overplay it. He lets curiosity and terror exist at the same time, which is hard to fake at any age. The standout acting choice here is attention. Bale is constantly watching, absorbing adults, violence, power, and survival without fully understanding them. His stillness does the work. He doesn't push emotion outward, he pulls the world inward. This performance matters because it doesn't feel like a great child performance, it feels intuitive. Bale already understands that intensity isn't about volume or dramatics. It's about focus. You can see the foundation of his later work forming right here. It's not extreme, it's not showy, but it's the earliest evidence of a trait that defines Bale's career: the ability to disappear into observation before exploding into action. Number 9, Shaft 2000. At number 9, we have Shaft, and yes, this is the one people forget when they talk about Christian Bale. Bale plays Walter Wade Jr., a rich kid who treats the justice system like a toy. The defining scene is the courtroom sequence early on where Bale barely raises his voice but radiates smug confidence. He doesn't play the villain as explosive, he plays him as untouchable, and that's what makes him so infuriating. The standout acting choice here is restraint. Bale keeps his posture relaxed, his speech casual, almost bored. He knows the system protects him, and he lets that knowledge do the acting. It's an early example of Bale understanding that menace doesn't always come from volume. Sometimes it comes from certainty. This performance matters because it shows Bale experimenting with control before his reputation for extreme transformations fully sets in. He's not disappearing physically yet, but he's already precise psychologically. It's not his most famous role, it's not his most intense role, but it's an important early sign of where his instincts were heading, toward characters who feel dangerous because they believe they're above consequence. Number 8, Equilibrium 2002. At number 8 is Equilibrium, one of the strangest entries in Christian Bale's career and one of the easiest to underestimate. Bale plays John Preston, a high-ranking enforcer in a world where emotion is illegal. The signature scene is the moment Preston accidentally stops taking his emotion-suppressing drug and feels music for the first time. Bale doesn't sell it with tears or big gestures. It's all micro reactions. A tightening jaw, a flicker of confusion, a physical stillness that suddenly feels unstable. The standout acting detail here is how controlled Bale is even when the character is waking up. He doesn't explode into feeling. He lets emotion arrive awkwardly, like something unfamiliar and slightly dangerous. That choice keeps the film from tripping into parody. This performance matters because it shows Bale's fascination with repression. Long before Batman or American Psycho became cultural shorthand, Bale was already playing men who live behind strict internal rules and slowly crack when those rules fail. Equilibrium isn't a great film, Bale knows that, but he treats it seriously anyway, grounding a stylized sci-fi concept with a performance that's oddly sincere. Number 7, The Machinist 2004. At number 7 is The Machinist, the role that permanently changed how people talk about Christian Bale's commitment. The signature scene is almost silent. Trevor Resnick standing shirtless, his body barely human, every bone visible. Bale doesn't play this as shock value. He moves slowly, cautiously, like gravity itself is a threat. His physical state isn't a gimmick, it's the character. The standout acting detail here is how Bale pairs physical extremity with mental fog. He slurs slightly, his eyes never fully focus, and his posture suggests constant exhaustion. He doesn't act crazy, he acts worn down by guilt he can't consciously name. What makes this performance essential isn't the weight loss, it's the discipline. Bale understood that the body would do half of the storytelling, so he stripped the performance back emotionally and let silence carry the tension. Many actors could have leaned into theatrics. Bale leaned into absence. This role matters because it set a dangerous precedent for Bale and for how audiences measures his work. From this point on, every transformation would be compared to The Machinist. Number 6, Harsh Times, 2005. One of Christian Bale's most volatile and least polished performances, and that's exactly why it belongs here. Bale plays Jim Davis, a deeply unstable former soldier drifting through Los Angeles with no real future and no emotional breaks. The signature scene is a convenience store confrontation, where Jim's mood flips from joking to threatening in seconds. Bale doesn't signal the turn, he just lets it happen, which makes it genuinely uncomfortable to watch. The standout acting detail is Bale's voice work. He shifts accents, cadences, and volume mid-sentence, like someone constantly trying on identities. It's not showy, it's actually messy, and it feels intentional. A man who doesn't know who he's supposed to be now that the structure of violence has been taken away from him. This performance matters because Bale refuses to make Jim likable or heroic. There's no arc toward redemption. He's impulsive, selfish, and frightening in small, everyday ways. Bale leans into that ugliness instead of sanding it down. Harsh Times isn't a clean film, and Bale doesn't give a clean performance, but it's one of the clearest examples of him weaponizing unpredictability, making you feel like anything could go wrong in any scene. Number 5, Rescue Dawn, 2006. At number 5 is Rescue Dawn, one of Christian Bale's most physically punishing performances and one of his most quietly disciplined. Bale plays Dieter Dengler, a real-life US Navy pilot shot down and captured during the Vietnam War. The defining scene comes deep into the jungle when Dieter is starving, barely standing, yet still negotiating with fellow prisoners about escape. Bale doesn't play desperation loudly, he plays it through stubborn clarity, eyes focused, voice thin but steady, refusing to let panic win. The standout acting detail is endurance. Bale allows exhaustion to shape every movement. He walks like each step is a calculation. His speech slows but never collapses. Even when the body is failing, the character's will stays sharp, and Bale makes the contrast the center of the performance. What makes this role essential is restraint. Werner Herzog's direction strips away sentimentality, and Bale meets that tone perfectly. There's no speechifying, no emotional release. Survival itself becomes the performance. This role matters because it shows Bale at the opposite extreme of The Machinist. He's still transformed physically, but here the suffering serves purpose, not guilt. It's about persistence, not decay. Quick pause. What's your personal number 1 Christian Bale performance so far? And yes, before anyone says it, no, he did not actually gain 450,000 pounds to play a sandworm in Dune. Though at this point, you can't blame people for checking. Number 4, The Dark Knight, 2008. At number 4 is The Dark Knight, and this is where Christian Bale's restraint becomes the point. In a film dominated by Heath Ledger's Joker, Bale makes a deliberate choice to pull inward. The signature scene isn't an action beat, it's the interrogation room. Bale's Batman barely moves. His voice stays low, measured, almost exhausted. He's not trying to dominate the room, he's trying to contain it. The standout acting detail here is vocal discipline. Bale adjusts the Batman voice subtly in this film, rougher than Bruce Wayne, but less theatrical than in Batman Begins. It sounds worn down, like the character has been doing this for too long and knows it's costing him something. What makes this performance essential is how Bale plays moral erosion. Bruce Wayne isn't growing stronger here. He's growing narrower. Every choice feels like a concession. Bale sells that through stillness, longer pauses, heavier posture, less confidence in his own authority. This role matters because it proves Bale understands supporting dominance. He knows when to step back and let the film breathe around him. Number 3, The Fighter 2010. At number 3 is The Fighter, the performance where Christian Bale turns self-destruction into something uncomfortably intimate. Bale plays Dickie Eklund, a former boxer living off past glory, and the defining scene comes during the HBO documentary interview. Bale lets Dickie talk himself into delusion in real time. The smile never quite lands, the confidence collapses mid-sentence, and you can see him rewriting reality as he speaks. The standout acting detail is physical looseness. Bale keeps Dickie in constant motion, twitching, pacing, laughing at the wrong moments. His body never settles, which makes it impossible for anyone else in the scene to relax. That instability does more work than dialogue ever could. What makes this performance essential is empathy without apology. Bale never asks the audience to excuse Dickie's behavior, but he refuses to mock him. Addiction isn't stylized here. It's repetitive, embarrassing, and sad, and Bale commits to all of it. This role matters because it proves Bale doesn't need extremity to dominate a film. He's sharing the screen, supporting another lead, and still carving out a performance that feels raw, unpredictable, and deeply human. At number 2 is Ford v Ferrari, the performance where Christian Bale proves that transformation doesn't have to be loud to be total. Bale plays Ken Miles, and the signature scene isn't a race. It's the moment he explains racing to his son, quietly, casually, with absolute clarity. There's no performance muscle here. Bale lets the character's certainty do the work. Ken Miles knows exactly who he is, and that confidence never needs to be announced. The standout acting detail is rhythm. Bale alters his timing in this film, the way he pauses, the way he interrupts himself, the way humor slips in unexpectedly. It feels lived in, like a man who's spent years inside his own head and doesn't bother explaining himself to others anymore. What makes this performance essential is humility. Bale disappears into Ken Miles so completely that you almost forget you're watching a Christian Bale performance. There's no visible effort, no self-conscious intensity, just instinct, intelligence, and control. This role matters because it shows the final stage of Bale's evolution. He no longer needs extremity to command attention. He can anchor a major studio film with quiet authority and still feel utterly specific. Before we get to the real number 1, there's one performance that hangs over the entire list. This is There Will Be Blood, not because Christian Bale appears in it, but because it's the performance every serious actor measures themselves against. Bale doesn't appear in the film, and that's exactly the point. Daniel Day-Lewis's Daniel Plainview is the benchmark, and Bale's entire career since has felt like a long personal response to that level of commitment. Bale has openly admired the performance, and you can see its shadow across his work. The voices, the isolation, the obsession, the refusal to soften characters for comfort. The signature scene is the baptism. Plainview is humiliated, publicly stripped of power, and Day-Lewis lets the rage sit just beneath the surface. That moment defines what fearless acting actually looks like. Why does this matter on a Christian Bale list? Because Bale is one of the only modern actors who consistently chooses roles that risk that level of exposure. He doesn't chase likability, he chases transformation, contradiction, and moral discomfort. And that's why The Bride matters. In March 2026, Bale steps into Frankenstein's monster under Maggie Gyllenhaal's direction, a character defined by physicality, silence, rage, and unwanted existence. It's not a reinvention for him, it's culmination. Everything he's done, repression, extremity, stillness, voice, suffering points here. This isn't Bale trying something new, it's Bale returning to the core question that's driven his entire career. How far can an actor go without asking for permission? Number 1, American Psycho 2000. At number 1 is American Psycho, the performance that turned Christian Bale into a cultural weapon. This is the role where Bale stops chasing intensity and starts controlling it. Bale's Patrick Bateman works because of a contradiction. The signature scene isn't a kill, it's the morning routine. Bale delivers it like a corporate presentation, voice calm, almost instructional, while the content slowly reveals how hollow and obsessive Bateman really is. The standout acting detail is comedy control. Bale commits fully to the absurdity, the precise diction, the forced smiles, the empty enthusiasm, without ever playing it as a joke. The humor comes from sincerity, not exaggeration. That's why the performance lands instead of collapsing into parody. What makes this role essential is how sharply Bale understands satire. He plays Bateman as a man who believes completely in the system that created him. The violence isn't rebellion, it's entitlement. And Bale never lets the audience forget that. This performance matters because it's the first time Bale blends transformation, intelligence, and dark humor into one persona, a blueprint he'd redefine for the rest of his career. That's the ranking, folks. So what's your number 1 Bale performance, and which one do you think is overrated? Bale stays dangerous.